Great to have you back with us. This is the second session in the Green Room today, the show before the show. I'm Dan Cofall. 877-326-3255 is a number that you can reach us at. You can also use that number to reach me both before and after the show if you'd like to reach out and talk to me. Also, email me at dan@dancofall.com. That gets through to me every time. We also have Facebook and Twitter and all the other things everybody else has. But I kind of prefer emails and phone calls, if you don't mind.
You generally like to steer away from the Facebook in general.
It's so impersonal, and it's so, 144. How many characters? 140 in Twitter? 140 or 144?
I think something like that. Yeah, I don't know exactly.
How limiting. This isn't haiku, for gosh sakes. How limiting in our ability to communicate, and it doesn't allow people to completely express their ideas. So phones do. Emails do. That's what would be great. Anyway, good to have you on board. I think I said dancofall.com is the website. Gerald Celente is our good friend. He is on the line right now. A little background on Gerald. He's the founder of the Trends Research Institute. He founded it in 1980. He is a trend strategist. Founded the Institute in 1980, author of the national bestseller Trends 2000 and Trend Tracking, Far Better Than Megatrends, and publisher of the internationally distributed quarterly TrendsJournal. I just read your last TrendsJournal, Gerald, and it was they keep getting better. Every one I get gets better than the last one. He's been known as the fearless teller of the truth, an accurate forecaster, a pure political atheist. With his tagline, he wants you to think for yourself, and that should get us into this, Gerald. Very nice to have you on, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that wonderful introduction. Yeah, the TrendsJournal, it started as a 8-page newsletter back in 1991 when we began that, and now it's 50 pages, full color. There's also there's the online edition, but the hard copy as well. And it's the finest print available anywhere. It's the highest quality paper and reproduction. So as the magazines keep shrinking around the world and getting cheaper, we keep growing and getting better. So it's great to bring back the quality of the past and push it forward.
I agree with everything you just said, but we got to add a few more things to it. It's the content itself is terrific. You go from terrific story to terrific story. It's an easy-to-read format. It's you don't have 5 different stories on one page and half a column here and half a column there. It's very logical when you read through it. You want to read each story front to back and then go to the next story. It seems kind of simple, but it's a real easy format to read. Maybe it's just me, but I'm sure you designed it that way.
Well, yeah, actually, the people that do it are up in Providence, Rhode Island, Circle Media, and everyone that works with us and for us, they're so dedicated to what they do that everybody gives it. They don't take the extra step; they go the extra mile, because they really believe in the work that we're doing, and that they know that we're, it's all from our heart in trying to bring the truth forward and to improve the conditions of this country. So when I tell you they bend over backwards, I mean it's an understatement. That these are people, these aren't kids. These are people in their 50s, mid-50s, and they're a major company, and they've never been more enthused about working on a project than working with us. So that's why it looks so great. And as I said, they put every ounce of energy into it to make it look like that.
All right, the website is TrendsJournal.com. Now, this is a fairly short segment, Gerald. We're going to take a break here in about 3 minutes and we'll come back and do one more segment. You allowed me to pick the topics today, and one I know we talk about regularly, and one is just coming up as a significant topic. One I want to talk about is how Russia and China are changing their monetary policy, the way it affects the dollar. They're dumping the dollar. They're acquiring gold. They're creating a parallel financial system. I'd like to know what your thoughts are on how that will affect the dollar. And we can start out with that if you want to, and then we can.
Sure.
Let's do that. Let's start out with that.
Yeah, well, it's real. You're looking at China and Russia being the largest buyers of gold. In Russia, I believe it was, their increases in gold last year were through the roof. And they're also setting up other systems for money transfers. So although at this point it's still very small, and the United States still maintains about 2/3 of the world's reserve currency, that shrunk from 80%. And although the Chinese yuan is only accounting now for about 3% of trade, it's going to increase as more and more the focus goes towards Asia and Russia and pulling away from the United States. So as the United States wages war, China's waging business. And their economy, by the way, is in trouble. So none of these trend lines are going to go straight up. We just looked at Chinese numbers in housing. They had a terrible year.
Yes, they did.
They're down between 5 and 10%, depending on which of the cities you're looking at, and across the board. But there's so much money, and so much of that money is going toward investments overseas as well. And still, a lot of foreign investment is returning into China. And then, of course, Russia is having its problems. I mean, they're going into a recession. You're looking at between a 3.5 to 5% decrease in GDP next year. But on the other hand, they also have a debt-to-GDP ratio that is way below the United States.
Virtually non-existent. Their total debt's around $10 billion.
Yeah, you're looking at what, about a 10, 11% debt-to-GDP ratio as compared to ours, about 110 to 120, depending on whose numbers you're looking at. So to sum up what you're saying, it's the beginning of the end. And the United States is squandering its resources in building nations rather than building the nation. And again, you listen to Jeb Bush's speech yesterday. You keep listening to everybody's in the Congress. More war, more fighting, and as the other countries want to do more business. So you can see where this is heading. And it's going to be at some point. Look, we saw what happened yesterday with the Fed announcement when they said that they were, we're going to tiptoe around this issue of raising interest rates. 2 days before they're coming out, the Fed, and they're saying that it looks like they're going to raise it in June. Now they're pushing it to September. So the only way this Ponzi scheme keeps going is by record low interest rates and devaluing the currency in real terms. That's what happens when you're giving dough away. And as you well know, the only reason the markets are going up is because of the cheap money that's being borrowed from the major corporations to buy back their stocks, which account for some 50% of it, and for the merger and acquisition activity.
Okay, Gerald, hold that thought, my friend. It's a good point for us to take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll talk about Russia being the largest purchaser of gold in the world. We've got Gerald Celente with us, and we are looking forward to this second segment with him. Stick around. We'll be right back. Central banks guarantee that inflation is in the cards. Risks have never been greater and yields have never been lower. How do you ensure your financial future? Gold and silver, especially at today's lower prices, are the best investment insurance you can buy. For 5,000 years, gold has been a vessel of wealth preservation over all other investments. Invest in the real wealth that is gold bullion. We are the Metals Vault. We provide outstanding pricing and service that is second to none. Call us today at 855-REAL-WEALTH. That's the Metals Vault, 855-REAL-WEALTH, a proud sponsor of the Dan Cofall Show.
This is the Cofall Green Room, a place where the Constitution isn't a banned word.
All right.
No, but we're getting close. I mean, every day we're getting closer and closer. We'll talk to Gerald Celente, our guest, in a few minutes about the censorship and the media and the police state and where we are likely headed here in the very near future. Let's finish our discussion. Gerald Celente with Trends Research. He is one of our favorite guests, been with us on this show pretty much since we started. I'm always very appreciative when he comes on. We were in the middle talking about Russia and the BRICS countries. And I have a number of people have asked me what BRICS stand for, and it's Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and it really encompasses about 30 or 40 more countries right now that have joined in. But that's the alliance that it refers to. Russia just recently has changed its monetary policy. Everybody thought they were going to have to sell gold out of their currency reserves in order to shore up their system. Not only did they not sell their gold, but they bought a record amount of new gold, which now made them the largest purchaser of gold in the world, beating China, which is that's a unique situation. So the question is Russia getting ready to create a gold-backed currency, an oil and gold-backed currency? Is China ready to do the same thing? Here's my question, Gerald, is we have gone to war with every country, no matter how large or how small, everything from from Iran to Libya to Russia right now. Anybody who dares threaten the supremacy of the U.S. dollar, we don't even bother negotiating. We don't bother bombing a few things, and we don't bother doing anything. We just go in there and declare war against that entity and say, let's fight first and ask questions later. That doesn't bode well for de-escalating the conflict in Russia, with Russia right now specifically, does it?
No, it doesn't. And, what's going on in Ukraine, people don't realize this, and again, this isn't speculation, it's fact. Anybody could go to YouTube and go to December 2013, it's not ancient history, and listen to the speech by our Assistant Secretary of State, Victoria Nuland, at the National Press Club, flanked by one side a Chevron sign and the other side ExxonMobil. And she's saying how she just came back from Kiev and how, actually, I have the printout right here. She goes on to say, when Ukrainians say they are Europeans, this is what they mean. As one very prominent Ukrainian businessman said to me, that Ukraine will no longer support any president, this one or a future one, who does not take them to Europe. And the speech goes on and on. The United States message has to be clear and unequivocal. Now remember, this is us saying what the message has to be to Ukraine, her speaking. We stand with the people of Ukraine for their European future.
Amazing.
And that's the future they deserve. A European future. This is news to the Russians over there.
Yes.
This is news to all those people in Ukraine that speak Russian and that was part of Russia up until Khrushchev gave it back in, 1953?
Yes, and it's news across the board. It is something. There have been conflicts in Ukraine, but this is a relatively recent phenomena of the Ukrainian uprising and the U.S. inserting both its own military equipment and possibly their own military folks into this conflict.
Yeah, and here she goes on. She goes. It's still possible to save Ukraine's European future. And we want to take immediate political steps. You ready for this? To end the crisis and get Ukraine back into a conversation with Europe, and here's the punchline, and with the International Monetary Fund.
Wow.
Now this is, again, anybody can listen. And she goes on, insisting that Ukraine is European and that their salvation will be to follow the path set forth by the International Monetary Fund. So they overthrew the democratically elected government of Yanukovych. Like him, hate him, crook, no crook. The fact is, it was a coup. Number two, they followed the path set forth by the International Monetary Fund. And now look at the condition of Ukraine.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And Ukraine right now is torn between the EU and between Russia, or between the EU and Russia, and then the United States prodding this conflict. I don't understand what's in it for the United States other than maybe some pipelines, or to cut off the ports to Russia, or just to help destabilize Russia and give them give them another Afghanistan or another Vietnam. I don't get the upside to this process.
Well, you don't get the upside because there isn't any. And when you see every major military move that the United States has made since the end of World War II, there has been no upside. Why can't people call a spade a spade? Look what happened in Korea. We had a general who was a real man, a real warrior, who ended it, and that was Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Right.
Rather than keep the slaughter going. And then what happened with Vietnam? A complete disaster. And it should be noted that under Eisenhower, a real commander-in-chief, a five-star general, supreme commander of the Allied forces, he hated war. And there were no major wars under his two-term presidency. And then we had Vietnam, a complete disaster. 58,000 Americans killed, 3 million Vietnamese, 250,000 wounded Americans, and how many millions of lives ruined in America from fighting the war. Then there's Afghanistan. Still goes on, no end in sight. Iraq. Hey, we're back. And now they're going into Syria. Look what the Peace Prize winner did in Libya by overthrowing the Gaddafi government, Obama, Sarkozy, and Cameron. Look what they've done there. They've destabilized the entire region. People are flooding into Italy. 3,000 last week from the devastated Libya that whether or not you like Gaddafi, it wasn't our business. It was the richest country in Africa. And what did they do? So when you say none of it makes sense, it doesn't make sense because it doesn't make sense.
Well, and I'm looking at Italy right now. We did this in the very opening of the show. Headlines reading, Italy prepares for potential ISIS airstrike. When did ISIS get an air force? But more importantly, Italy is preparing for war against ISIS. How do you fight ISIS that doesn't have a country? But yet Italy is doing exactly what America is doing. They are continuing to bring these, quote, refugees into their country, and buried within these refugees are ISIS fighters.
Yeah, again, what created ISIS? The destabilization. As I said, over 1 million people in Iraq have been killed. The entire country is destroyed based on lies, or we'll call it false information. What did they do in Syria? You have 3 million refugees, 250,000 dead. Look what they did in Libya. Oh, you think you created radical groups? Blow me away. Don't know how it happened. Oh, how about all those people that you tortured when you threw out the Sunni government in Iraq, put in the Shia government, and they put all these young guys into jail and tortured them? Oh, they couldn't be ISIS guys. No. Oh, and how about that lovely situation over there in Egypt? Oh, you know the one where now they have the former head of the military, al-Sisi, is now president. And under our government, we are not supposed to be supplying armaments to a country that has had a military coup. Hey, you people up in Boston, you can't shovel out. Trains aren't running. No plows on the road. No money. Guess what? A lot of it just went to Egypt, $1.3 billion.
The leaders around the world, this is what gets me. 5 years ago, I thought I understood the agenda of each leader. Now it appears that the significant leaders around the world have all migrated, including President Obama, to this pro-Muslim outlook and this outreach and this outrage about opening their country to Muslims, whether they are happy-go-lucky, carefree Muslims or whether they're ISIS fighters that we have to fear. What happened?
Again,
what happened?
They cannot stop it. This is what I'm trying to say. You have people fleeing their countries that are being bombed out. You look at pictures of Aleppo in Syria 2 years ago and look at it now. This was an advanced civilization. People used to go to Syria for vacations, filled with history. The places are destroyed. The people have nowhere to go. And so they've destabilized the entire region, and now we're suffering the blowback.
Gerald, let me ask you a question. We're going to take a break here in just a minute. Do you have time to come back even for a few minutes and talk about well, let's talk about the police state when we come back. Police state and the surveillance state here in the United States, because once we paint that picture for people, I'm curious just to know what really the best forecaster in the world thinks this will bring for the American people over the short term. I'm going to ask you if you think there's actually going to be a 2016 election. And for all the people like me and other folks who talk about the tyrannical government here in the United States, what are the effects going to be on the average American citizen over the next year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5? Well, you don't have to nail it down to the specific year, but those things, I want to ask you those questions when we come back. Let's come right back. Gerald Celente will be back with us here on the Dan Cofall Show, The Green Room, 877-326-3255, or you can email me at dan@dancofall.com. What a great conversation with Gerald. We'll be right back.
Would you like to see how real professionals manage money and risk? Hi, this is Danny Stewart, President and Chief Investment Officer at NORAM Asset Management. At NORAM, we employ tested and proven stock and option strategies to maximize success while limiting downside risk. If you would like to visit us during live market hours, we would be happy to show you how we work. To schedule a time, just go to noramasset.com or call me at 855-REAL-WEALTH. Again, that's 855-REAL-WEALTH.
This is the Cofall Green Room, the show before the show.
Gerald Celente is with us. He is the publisher of the TrendsJournal. You can go out to the website, TrendsJournal.com, or you can find him on Twitter. It's at Gerald Celente, Celente. Facebook is also Gcelente, and contact with him there. Every time you're on the show, Gerald, we always have a huge bump in our audience, and I know why, I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
All right, let me come back, and I'm switch gears a little bit, because the frustration of seeing the world, the leaders of the free world, all migrating to a open border, welcome the radical Islamist, they mean us no harm philosophy. The only major leader in the world that is not doing that, well, Putin's not doing that, number one. And Merkel, to her credit, has resisted doing that. But most other folks, throw in Jordan in there, most other folks have pretty much opened their doors. So since I'll never figure that one out, let's move on to the totalitarian state that we have right now, the surveillance state, the militarized police state. Of all the things that concern me right now, is that I know we should be concerned about terrorism, but really the thing that concerns me is the very chilling effect that's going to have on people like you and me and other alternative media, and consequently on the American people when they're so afraid to say something that they won't even converse with their friends. This is the purpose of what this government wants to do with the surveillance state. Tell me where I'm wrong, Gerald.
You're not wrong. And it's going on every time that there's an incident, regardless of it's here, whether it's in Europe. They use that incident, 1, 2, or 3 people kill a couple of people, they rob everybody's rights from them. And I believe they're doing all of this because of the failure of the global government in terms of economy. And there's a crash coming. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Most people believe it. And we all know the only reason it's being held together are these record low interest rates. They haven't raised interest rates since 2006. And as I mentioned, now they're not going to raise them. They're talking about until what? September.
Right.
So now you also have all this cheap money flowing in that's propping up the markets while everybody else is getting poorer. If you were to say this a couple of years ago, you'd be called a Marxist, socialist, whatever. Now the facts are there, and the numbers don't lie. What are you looking at? 85 people having more dough than 3.5 billion. Those are facts.
Oh, yeah.
So now they're doing this militarized state, I believe, in anticipation of the social breakdown. And for all those people out there that love to call yourselves Republicans, because as you mentioned, I'm a political atheist. To me,
right.
They're the Bloods and the Crips. They're no different. No, I mean that because they're both murderers and thieves.
And same colors, too. You got red and blue. It's perfect.
It's perfect. So here's something. Jeb Bush just gave a speech yesterday. He supports the National Security Agency's collection of phone records. Isn't that nice?
I saw that, and I saw his quote. Did you see the end of the quote where it said, for the life of me, I don't understand where this debate has gotten off track. The program rules do protect our civil liberties. What kind of an idiot does he take the country for?
Well, they all take us for idiots because we have to be idiots to have more Bushes and Clintons. What a disgrace. What a disgrace that this country, that's it? A Bush and a Clinton? How about a Mickey and a Minnie? Because that's all we got, man. It's Disney World. And it's being shoved down our throats. And the media keeps pumping them up. So when you're talking about the police state, again, you go back to that quote by Franklin that everyone knows that everybody doesn't want to use. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Now, the founding fathers would be rolling in their graves to see what happened to this country. And you were talking about, the people flooding into the borders. You know what I want to do? We're launching Occupy Peace on May 2nd. And it's to honor thy founding fathers. No foreign entanglements. Bring home the troops, close the bases, and seal the borders. Seal them. We got enough people. We got 320 million. We can't afford to take care of who we have here now. We're going to bring in other people?
Yeah, but we're told that the borders can't be sealed. We have the biggest army, the biggest military the world has ever seen. And our job when we go fight a war somewhere is to seal borders. But apparently our own borders are just too damn difficult to protect.
Right, but yet they could keep robbing us of our rights under the guise that they're going to protect us.
So let me.
But I got to defend them. They're right. They can't be sealed. These clowns couldn't stop a guy from jumping over the White House fence and going inside and taking a dump. I mean, so you're right. They can't seal the borders. They're a bunch of losers, and no one wants to call them what they are. They're losers. There's no victory that they can show militarily, environmentally, educationally, healthcare. Washington, D.C. is the house of losers.
Well, political correctness has taken over because neither Republicans nor Democrats, nobody wants to be responsible for dead illegal immigrants and foreign felons crossing the border. They just can't take the press stories about that and the worldwide, quote, condemnation, instead of the world saying, hey, thank God you protected your border just like Mexico would if you broke into Mexico.
Exactly. Look, I've been writing about this for years, Dan. When I wrote Trend Tracking back in 1988, I was talking about the flood of cheap labor coming into the country. Do you know who was pushing it back then? The National Association of Manufacturers. That's when we used to have manufacturing here, so they could bring in cheap labor.
Right.
Then when I wrote Trends 2000 in 1995, you know who's pushing for the H-1B visas? Silicon Valley, to bring in cheap labor.
That's right.
That's all this is. It's to bring in cheap labor so the multinationals can make more money off of it.
And now it's the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. They're just different names for the same people, and the end game is cheap labor, and the end game is the elimination of the middle class in this country and their ability to fight back.
And you got it. You nailed it perfectly. Well said, and it's the best one I've ever heard. The elimination of the middle class so you can't fight back because they've dumped everybody into the lower class.
That's exactly right. And all they need is to tear apart the Second Amendment. Now you've disarmed the people in the middle class that are now lower class. Those folks in the middle class that have had their lives taken away will protest. They will fight. They will go to Washington with pitchforks. But if all they can take is pitchforks, then it's a losing proposition.
Well, again, to me, we need a spiritual, moral, and an intellectual revolution, not one of violence. And I'm no pacifist, as you know. I'm a close combat practitioner.
Yes.
Anybody tries to kill me, I'll kill them first. Just to make it clear.
Well,
I don't think that's against the law, is it? Or anybody listening on NSA? Are you allowed to protect yourself, or do I got to call in a goon to protect me?
Who's the senator in California? Was it Boxer or was it Feinstein, the one who had the husband in the hospital and she carried her gun with her going to the hospital to see her husband, and she said, well, I've got a gun, but if they're going to try to take me out, I'm going to take one of them out first. And she's the biggest anti-gun person in the entire country. She had a moment of clarity when she was talking about that. So, yes, I would expect anybody who tried to harm you or me or anybody else to not be able to do that. That would be my sincere hope.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
I think it's Diane, not too Feinstein.
Yeah, I think you're right. Okay, hey, I'm down to a minute, Gerald. I have a thought, and so do a lot of people on this show. And I know you've talked to folks like Alex and a number of folks around the country. There are listeners to this show that think that the election in 2016 won't occur. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think it'll occur. No, it'll happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be. It looks like it's going to be either a Bush or a Clinton, and probably a Bush. And I would also say that now is the time more than again. I made my reputation also by forecasting a third party back in 1988 for the '92 elections.
Right.
And I had mentioned Ross Perot. Now's the time for a third party, and I think there's no time better. And if anybody thinks we can't do it, it's those people that have been pushed out of the middle class into the lower class and can't think anymore. Look what's happening over in Spain. The Podemos party, in less than a year, it could win the elections now. UKIP in the UK. You're looking at the Syriza party in Greece. One after another in Germany, in Italy. We can do it here. We need another way, because the only way we're going now between a Bush and a Clinton is downhill fast.
Get me your bumper sticker, Gerald. I'll put it all over my car.
Okay.
Gerald Celente has been our guest. He's the publisher of the TrendsJournal. I would say go to the website, TrendsJournal.com. If you want to send him a message, go to Twitter. It's at Gerald Celente. Facebook, Gcelente. And you can reach him. If you get a chance to subscribe to his publications, please do that. These are some of the best publications in the country, and Gerald's a good friend of ours. Thanks for staying with us so long, Gerald.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on, and keep up the great work.
God bless, my friend. We're going to be right back.